Okay, so here we go. We've opened up index match. Please go to the very first one, the lookup table. Okay. And we're going to start using the index match function, but we're going to use it. We're going to start with the exact match. This is not what you use for binning exactly, but well, yeah, it's not what you use for binning, but you need to know how to use this anyway, and it's the foundation for binning. Okay, so the first thing is, what team is the fourth team? So over here, we have these teams and they're in orange. So the fourth one down is Skype. Now, what happens if your list had 300 entries? It would be really hard, right? So what we want to do is come up with a way of finding it. So notice if you click on the word Sky over here, go up to this function formula bar up here and click on it, you'll see I selected the range of those values that I want to look up and I put 4. So it's telling me what's the fourth one. You guys with me? Okay, if you get that, try doing what is team second using the formula index. Index is we're going to put a number, we're going to say which one we want. So try doing a similar formula. I'm going to keep it highlighted up here for what is team second and what is team first. And that's really bad grammar. What is the second team and what is the first team? Yeah, if you have to go to File, Save As, and save a copy. So here we're going to say equals index. And I'm going to pick this range right here. And I'm going to say 2 because I want what team is second. I got Forest, right? Now, if I want to copy this formula down, if I copy it down, it's going to actually be wrong. Because if I click on here, notice my whole blue box has shifted. My blue box shifted down, so it's wrong. All right, so if I want to copy the formula, what do I do to get so the blue box doesn't shift down? What do I have to do to the formula before I copy it? We got to freeze these, right? How do we freeze them? We put the dollar signs. So remember, function F4 puts the dollar signs. So now if I copy that formula down, now if I copy the formula down and I change the 2 to a 1, now I'm getting ocean. So it worked. So for function F4, everybody, I had some people not know how to do that. There's some keyboards, you have a little FN in your bottom left corner. You have to hold that down while you hit the F4 key. My keyboard in this room has an F4 key that just works. So it depends on your keyboard. Okay. Now we're going to, that was one part of this index match. Now we're just going to work on learning how match works. So let's go in and look at match. Okay, which is purple? We want to know which is purple. So if you notice, I type in purple. That's my lookup value. So match is a lookup value and it has this range. All right, notice that there's a 0 because that when we do an exact match, we put a 0. So when you go up here, I put the lookup value, which is the purple, right? So I put purple because it's not a number. I have to put quotes around it. Then I put the range that I'm looking at, C3 through C7. So I put this range of these are the lookup values. And I say, and what it's going to tell me is which is purple in this list. So I don't have to count. I don't have to go 1, 2, 3, 4. Answer is 4. That's what this function's doing. It's saying, if I start counting at the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, I find purple on row 4. That's what match does. Match does that counting for you. Okay? So make sure you're able to do that and see if you can get it to tell you which one is red and which one is blue. You would say equals match, right? Now what do we put? We put in quotes red, right? And then we're going to put in here our range of lookup values. So these are, we're going to say what is red in this whole list? What position does it have? And then notice when I hit comma, Excel's giving me the choices. It says 1 for less than, 0 for exact match, or -1 for greater than. Okay, so we're doing the exact match option. So it reminds you what needs to go there. So we're going to go to 0. So put a 0. Okay, now if you did that right, you'll see that red is the 5th one in our list. And I put the positions over here to make us double check our work. So we can see, yeah, we got that one right. All right, now if you want to copy this formula, what do we have to do to it so it doesn't get messed up? How do we fix this formula so we can copy it without messing it up? We got to put those dollar signs in. Okay, so we're going to go up here and we're going to see that range C3 through C7. When we shift that down, we don't want it to go to C4 to C8. We want it to stay C3 to C7. So we're going to put dollar signs around that. So the way to do that quick and easy is I can select those up here in the formula bar and just hit function F4. Okay, so now that I have that, I can copy it by just dragging it down. But now I have to change this red up here to blue. Okay, all right, so I'm going to pause right there. All right, now we're going to put them together. Okay, so now let's say you want to know what team. Hey guys, this is an important part of understanding this. This table, the rows mean that Team Ocean is associated with a favorite color blue. So what's on the row, they're tied together. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the lookup values to assign the team. Okay, so far we said, okay, we know how to find a team if I give you a number. And now we figured out how to get a number by a color, from a color, right? So now we're going to put those together. So if we look over here at putting those together in this sky, notice what we're doing. We have embedded that we're going to match on purple on this lookup values. It's going to bring us back to 4 that we just figured out. And then that's going to go into the index on these and pull out the 4th one, which is sky. So make sure you can type that in for the next 2 and make sure you can get how that works. So try that. I'm gonna start typing the next one. So this is equals index. And you always start with what you want as your output. Where is your output that you want? You want a team assignment. So we're going to put that team, comma, and we're going to match on. And what team goes with red? I'm going to put red in quotes. And now I'm going to go to the lookup values. And I want to put comma 0 because I want to match exactly. Now that first parentheses only closes the function for match. Okay, we need another parentheses to close this open parentheses from index. So each function has an opening and closing parentheses. So we're going to need to close this. If not, you'll get an error by closing the second function. Okay, so did you guys see that it goes, what team goes with red? And it gave me fire. Make sure you understand the logic there. Okay, now try to copy that formula down by putting the dollar signs where they need to go. So if we're going to copy this formula and we want to know what team goes with blue, we're going to take the same formula. We're going to change everything that has a range in it, and we're going to make that into a dollar sign. We're going to freeze that range in space. Okay, so now that I have that set up, now I copy it. So I'm going to copy it down. And now instead of red, I'm going to put in here blue. Okay, and now it tells me that the team that goes with blue is Team Ocean. All right, now we're going to do the exact same thing, but notice every time here we wanted something, we were putting in quotes and typing in the color. Now we're going to have the colors in this in their own column. Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to point at the lookup value. So now notice here that I'm pointing to the word purple instead of typing it in. So it's going to let me, it's going to say, so let me talk you through the logic of this. It's going to say, right here, I'm on this one, and the red box, it says, is the lookup value. So it says lookup purple, whatever 03 is, lookup purple in this range, C3 through 37, and find the exact match. So it's going to return the number 4, and then index that back to the 4th team, which is sky. Okay, So I'm going to say equals index. What I always tell myself is the first thing that goes in is what I want to come out. So what I want to come out is a team assignment. So I'm going to come over here. I'm going to highlight the team. And then I'm going to scroll over a little so you guys can see what I'm doing a little bit better. And then I'm going to type in match because I need to know which one. And I'm going to match on, now I'm going to point to what that value, that lookup value, which is red. And then I'm going to point to where those lookup values live. And I want an exact match. So I'm going to close match and then close index and I get fire. Okay, if you got this, try copying that formula with a $sign so you can actually get it to give you the next one down. Now remember, one of those things is pointing to you don't want you don't want the dollars on. You don't want dollars on what it's pointing to because you want that to actually go down with you. Okay, so what am I saying? Let's try that. I'm going to take this formula and I'm going to want everything that's in the lookup table to be frozen. But I don't want the lookup value frozen because when I copy that down, I want it pointing to the blue now. So I purposely did not put $signs on what I'm pointing to, the lookup value, because I wanted to move with me the formula when I copy it. Okay, so if you did that right, you should get that you get ocean out of this too. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to come over to data and assign teams to Susan, John, Tanya, and Olivia using index match. Okay, you can put this side by side, so it might not be a bad idea to do view, new window, and view, arrange all, vertical, and side by side. So on the right hand side, I'm going to put the lookup table. So here's your lookup table. On the left, this is this little orange and blue is your lookup table. Bless you, bless you. Okay. Can you try and assign teams to Susan, John, Tanya, and Olivia based on their favorite color? You're going to start typing equals index, and then you're going to put the range of outputs. The range of outputs is where are the teams, because you're trying to assign a team, right? So go to the range of teams. So I'll do it with you. I'm going to come over here and say equals index. And now I want to assign a team, right? So go to where the teams are and select the teams. So notice I got the green line moving around, right? You guys see the little green dash line? Because it's going to be one of these. I want to select one of these. Which one do I want? The one I want is the one that Susan's favorite color is. So I'm going to match. Now I hit match because I want to figure out which one of those teams matches Susan's favorite color. What's her favorite color? Purple. So notice up here I wrote match. Now point to purple. Just point to it and click. Okay, so we're going to point to purple and click. And in here, I get B2. All right, so you should be getting B2 when you point to that one. Now we're going to put a comma. We got to look this up in our lookup table. So we're going to put a comma. Now come over to the lookup values and select that range. Okay, we're going to select that range of values because we want to look this up. We want to look up whatever's here. Pretend you don't know what's there. Just whatever's there, we're going to look it up in these lookup values. Once we find it, we're going to assign the team that's on that same row. So go ahead and do that. So look up, and we're going to go to the lookup values by clicking over here and selecting that range. Okay, so notice I put the lookup value from Susan, and then where I'm looking up, I've got this thing right here selected. Right now, put comma 0 because we want an exact match. Close the parentheses on match, close the parenthesis on index. And you should have got that she's on sky. All right, now I'm going to make this window just a little bigger so it's easier for you guys to see. there's certain things in this window I need to convert to have the dollar sign so I can copy the formula. All right. So what am I going to do to copy this formula? I'm going to go to anything that's in the lookup table and I'm going to put dollar signs. So the lookup table and this one. Just like I did a second ago when we were doing it on that worksheet. All right, now that you have that, just copy this formula down to John, Tanya, and Olivia and see if you got their team assignment correct. So if you got their team assignment correct, I'm going to copy that down. Notice that every time it's pointing to their favorite color. Okay. All right, so we got sky ocean and sky forest. Okay, everybody's got that? Now we're going to learn how to use index match to bin. All right, so now that was an exact match and that's really useful, but it's not going to help you for binning. We're going to have to bin on an interval of data. Okay, so I'm going to talk first a little bit about index match. And then we'll talk more, a little more theory about binning. Okay, I think we'll see how it goes. Let's start with learning how to use index match for binning. Okay, so for that, go to the lookup table, please. Okay, hopefully, if you scroll down, I'm making bins, by the way, based on points. Let's say that we played ping pong or I don't know, basketball or something, and we got points, and we're going to assign people to teams based on their points. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to create bins. Okay. We're going to use the minimum from every bin to match on. Okay. So I'm going to go bin 1. Sorry, it goes from 1 to, actually, this could go from 0 to 10 to be more accurate. Well, yeah, assume you could have 0 points. I guess that's possible. Okay, but over here, bin, we're going to count by 10. So 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, right? So I'm building the upper bound of the bin. So if 10 is the bin, if a bin goes from 0 to 10, hold on, my cursor's on top. Hey, Gunnar, if bin 1 goes from 0 to 10, what's the next bin got to start at?
If it went from 0 to 10.
Yeah, the next bin. 11.
Oh, okay.
We're counting whole number points. Okay. So bin 1 goes 0 to 10. That means bin 2 goes 11 to 20.
Sure.
So bin 3 goes
21.
1 into 30. Okay, get it? So how can we do that in Excel? We can, this one we can just say equals the previous one plus 10, each one. So let me put that in here. So you could just type 10, 20, 30, 40, but what if you had a 500, right? You could say this is equal to the previous one plus 10. And once you do that, then you can just drag this formula down and it's going to do that for you every time. And then here, you can say this is equal to up and over the max from the previous one, what you just told me, plus 1. Right? So we're going to copy that down. On your newer version of Excel, you're going to use the function equals concat. Concatenate is how you build a string or a sentence in Excel by pointing to things. So we're going to say equals this bin. In my old version of Excel, I have to say concatenate. You guys just say concat. All right, and what you should get is 0 to 10 in the bin name. Okay, so what you do is you say equals concat something, comma something, comma something, comma, etc. However many things you want. Okay, and it's gonna just stick them all together. So this first one I said point to C15, so this was a 0. In here I put space 2 space with quotes around it, and in the third one I pointed to the 10. So it's going to concatenate and create a bin name for me called 0 to 10. Okay, so once you have that, the old versions of Excel use concatenate, the new one uses concat. I have the old version, so I'm just going to copy that down and get all these bin names. Notice how it did that for me? All right, great. Now that we've done that, we're going to use the minimum to match. Okay, so let's say, once again, we want to know the fourth team. What team is fourth? So this is just a repeat from above. Let's come over here to J. And we're going to look at, we're going to use match. Notice that match now has a 1. So what match, when you use a 1 in here, what that's going to do is it's going to look at, we're saying which bin has 35 points. Okay, so what I'm going to do is if we look at this bins, the one that has 35 points is this one that goes 31 to 40, right? 35 is in that interval. So the way match is going to find the fourth one is it's going to say match to 35 on this interval. Let me get that highlighted for you guys. Okay, it's going to match on that interval. If the number in here is less than the number that you're looking up, okay, and the 1 tells it to find the number that's less than but not greater than. Find the biggest of all these numbers that's less than but not greater than. So as it goes through this, it goes, yep, that's less than, so is that, so is that, so is that. Oh, that's not. 41 is not less than 35. So it gives this previous one as the answer. Is that all right? You guys understand the logic? It's finding which interval that number lies in. Okay, so if you can do that, try which bin has 48 points. So we're going to say match, and we're going to match on 48. And again, we're going to pick the minimums of these bins. You always use the minimum for index match. And oh, but they have to be in order from smallest to biggest. Okay, so we go in here and we're going to select these minimums, comma 1. So which bin has 48? The 5th bin. Were you able to get that? Okay, so now if you got that, copy that formula down by first changing this range where the minimums are, change that to dollar, freeze those up with the dollar signs. All right, so we're going to copy that formula down and we're going to change it from a 5 to 6. It says which bin has 6 points. So we'll put a 6 in here. All right. So if you let me highlight that and make sure you're good. So the difference now is we're not looking at exact match. We're looking at the lower end of an interval, and we want to know which of these intervals is that number living in. All right, so you're getting this. So now we're going to put it together, and we're going to actually look for what team is associated with a certain number of points. So to make this a little more easy for you to see, I'm going to hide this columns. We'll talk about that later if you haven't seen that. But okay, so we want to know what team goes with the 48 points. So we're going to do this using this index match combined. So we're going to say equals index. We're going to highlight what team we want, and we're going to match on the number of points, which is 48. And we're going to put in here the minimum of the bins, and we're going to put a comma and a 1. We're going to close the match function, and we're going to close the index function. So we can see that 48 points is going to go with team fire. Okay, so let me highlight this over here. Any questions on that? If you're like me, you kind of have to look at it and sit with it a little, maybe to just kind of really see the logic of what's happened. All right. But we're going to use this. We're going to copy this down now. So I got it. Before I copy it, I have to put the dollar signs in and anything that's in my lookup table. Okay, so I'm going to copy this now. But now I got to change the 48 points. I got to change the 48 points to 6 points. because I want to know what team goes with 6. Okay, now if you did that right, you should have got Team Ocean. All right, and that certainly makes sense if you look at the lookup table manually. 6 is between 0 and 10, and that should have been Team Ocean, so it worked. Okay. Now we're going to take it up one more notch. Instead of having to type in the number of points, we're going to have it point to the number of points. So over here, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to look up the value. So let me click on that. So notice that the number of points was 35, and it's in its own cell, 35. So I'm pointing to that 35. Everything else is in here. I have the 1, and it's going to give me the team assignment based on the points. Okay, so I go in there, and I am going to do the same thing. I'll manually type this one out. So I'm going to say equals index. I want a team assignment, comma, and I'm going to base that on the minimum. So I'm going to point to my lookup value. My lookup value was a 48. And I'm going to go to the minimum of my bins, my bin minimums. And I'm going to match on that the bin interval is less than what I'm trying to match on. All right, so I got fire for that. And I want to copy this formula down. It seems to work. So I'm going to change those to, I always make sure it works, and then I go through the hassle of putting the dollar signs in. All right. So now I can just copy this formula, Ocean. All right. So if you think that worked for you, I want you to assign the teams now back in the data tab, back over here in the data tab. I'm going to slide this over. We're going to assign the new team. We're going to assign new teams to Susan, John, Tanya, and Olivia based on how many points they have. So see if you can assign their teams based on their points now. So let me pull up the lookup table over here. What you should be doing is you're going to say equals index. Now remember, we're going to go to the team because that's what we want as an output first, comma, match. And we're going to match on that Susan got 43 points. We're going to match that to where the minimums are for each interval. And we're going to put a 1 because we're doing a less than. All right, so I got that based on her points, Susan is now, her new team is fire. All right, so let's go up and change the lookup table values to freeze those with the dollar signs. All right, so now take your, once you confirm that it still worked, and you can click on it, you can see what it's pointing to. It's pointing to the 43, so that's working. We're gonna just, you can take that little tiny green box on the bottom right corner and drag that down. And hopefully you'll see that the new team assignments should be fire, desert, ocean, forest. So now I wanna talk about using index match to bin. So if you come over here to the patient's lookup, over here on the right, please go to the patient's data. Okay, so we have some data, some patient's data. It's been, we don't know the patient's ID number, but we know their race, their highest level of education, how many minutes they exercised, how much they weigh, and their height, and also their birthday. Okay, so coming over here, and we have a lot of data here, by the way. We have 400 records of patients. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is binning them by their exercise. We're going to put bins together, and we want to do 30-minute intervals. Okay, so to get 30-minute intervals, first of all, we want to see how many bins we're going to need. So I'm going to get the maximum of, I go over to exercise over here on the right. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is we're going to bin exercise, and we're going to bin exercise into 30-minute intervals. So one way to bin is we decide on those intervals. just like we were doing with the team points, and we were doing 10-point bins, now we're gonna do 30-minute intervals. So the first thing we gotta do is make our lookup table. So to make our lookup table, what we're gonna do is we go in and we can get, we're gonna get our maximum and our minimum. So let me pull up the data. I'm gonna use the function maximum, and I'm gonna select the column C. That's gonna give me the maximum, and then I'm gonna get the minimum. And I'm gonna select column C. And I get 49 and 21, and so the range is just the difference between those two. And I wanna do 30-minute intervals, so I take that range of values and I divide it into 30s, and I find out how many bins I'm gonna need. I'm gonna round up always. So in this case, I round up to 16. Okay, now I'm gonna start, my first bin is gonna go from, assuming someone might, I wanna make sure my minimum is included in the first bin. So my first bin, I'm gonna go from 0 to 30, because 21 minutes is in there. Then I'm gonna take my second bin, and just like before, try and do this on your own. We're gonna say equals, we're gonna point to the bin right above it, and we're gonna add 30, because we're doing 30-minute intervals. Now we're gonna take that 60 and we're gonna drag it down, because now we're gonna, until we have enough bins to cover 499, which is our maximum. Every value has to end up in a bin. Okay, now that we know that, the minimums are gonna be one more than the maximum from the previous bin. So this is just equals to the bin max plus 1, the bin max from the previous row plus 1. And I'm gonna drag this down. And now I got all my bin minimums. All right, so we did that. Now we need our bin names. So our bin names are gonna be, we're gonna point to the min, and you can do it however you want. The way I did it was, I pointed to the bin, I put, in quotes, a dash, and then I pointed to the max, and then I put space bin for minutes. So that's how I did it. You know, whatever bin name you wanna come up with. It's got to be somehow indicative of 0 to 30. So once I got that and it looks right, remember for you, it's just concat. Then I'm going to go to this little green square and double click it. And then automatically I get all my bin names. So I don't have to do it manually by hand. Okay. Now that I have my lookup table all set up, let's go over here to exercise and bin exercise. So here's the first person. They exercised 138 minutes. So the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say index. So what do I want to get out of this? What do I want this function to give me back? A bin name. So I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna select the bin names. That's what I'm trying to get out of this. What am I gonna match on? Their current exercise level. So that's C2. And I'm going to match that on the bin minimums. So I select those bin minimums, comma 1, and I close out that function and I get 121 to 150 minutes. Okay, that worked. All right, so now I want to copy it down. So I'm going to go in here and everywhere that it says lookup, I'm going to make those absolute references. All right, so now I made it absolute reference and it still works. So now I'm going to double click and now I'm going to do 400 people binned instantaneously. Look, boom, done. Okay. All right, now I'm going to show you another way to bin. That's really easier. And that's when you just make it however you want. That's when you can do custom bins. So I'm going to bin heights by if you're short, average, whether these patients are short, average, or tall. And I'm going to make up any numbers I want on what's considered short, average, or tall. And these are in meters. I looked at it, I converted it, and I kind of did something I thought made sense to me. So I just made this up as to what the cut marks are. But the thing is, I looked at the patient data and I went to their heights. And when I looked at their height, where's their height? Oh, there it is, height. I noticed that they're in decimals, 2 decimals, right, on the meter. So whenever I created my lookup table, it was really important that I go to 2 decimals because that's what my data had. So if I decided that my first bin went to 1.63, that forced the beginning of my next bin to start at 1.64. Is that clear? Because that's the precision that I had in my data. And I decided that was going to end at 1.89, which meant this next one was going to start at 1.90. Okay, so now I created this, so now I can use it to decide if everybody is short, average, or tall from these patients. So I'm going to go here to my first patient, say equals index. I'm going to select the bin name because that's what I want. What I want out of this is if they're short, average, or tall. I'm going to match it on their height. Their height is in G2. I'm going to match that with the lower end of the bins and do a 1, close match, close index, and I get that this person is short. Let me click on that so you guys can see it. Since that worked, I'm going to make all these relative references absolute. It still worked. So if that worked, I'm going to double click the little green button on the bottom right corner, and I'm going to automatically have everybody binned as either short, average, or tall. Now, what's really powerful about this is that I did that pretty quickly. Now, I've done this a lot and I'm good at it, but you'll get there. And I know that you're probably going a lot slower, but I just wanted to show you how quickly you can do this once you know how to do it. Now, what's even more powerful is I can quickly give you information on this data because I can now go to insert. I can come over to pivot chart and do pivot chart and pivot table. I'm going to put this in a new worksheet. And in my new worksheet, I'm going to grab over here on the pivot chart fields. I'm going to grab short and put it under the rows. So we see average, short, and tall. And then I'm going to grab that and put it under values. Oops, let me try that again. It's going to give me the count. So very quickly, I'm able to tell you that in our data, we have over 200 patients that are average height. We have about 130 something that are short, and we have 50 that are considered tall, according to me. Okay, so it's a very useful tool for quickly turning a bunch of data into something useful. Okay, so that's how that works.